much indeed. We're going to move on to another aspect of the things that are on Rishi Sunak's shoulders at the moment, and that, of course, is the Ukraine, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So he's been talking to us about sending jets specifically to Ukraine with the aid of allies Poland and America. So talking about that now, we have another guest.
We've got Portia with us, Portia Berry-Kilby joining us. Portia, I think the Prime Minister is sort of between a rock and a hard place on Ukraine at the moment, isn't he? Because there he is in Munich saying that we've all got to double down and give more support to Ukraine. But at the same time, here at home, he's got a battle on his hands with the Secretary of State for Defence, saying we haven't got enough money being spent on how we protect our own borders here at home.
Well, that's very true, and it's not exactly the best timing, is it? Because we know that the UK has been quite a vocal and active supporter of Ukraine since the war started. But then we have Ben Wallace saying over the past couple of days that this has highlighted the vulnerabilities of the UK defence. And at a time when there are fairly few soldiers compared with recent years, this isn't the best thing. And spending in between 2010 and 2017, there's something about £6 billion cut in real money in terms of what was going to UK defence. So there definitely has to be a build-up of what is spent at home if more is going to be sent to Ukraine. And at the same time, European countries need to do their part to help out as well. It can't just be left to the UK and the US.
It's interesting, Portia, how this has changed over time. So the UK donated £2.1 billion in aid to Ukraine in 2022. Rishi's call for doubling down. We don't know if that means financially, but still, we've gone from helmets to tanks to jets. This is a clear escalation. And initially, at the start of this conflict, people were quite concerned about this kind of military aid being perceived as an act of aggression or even an act of war. Do you think this brings us nearer to that, or is this just clever strategy, kind of moving forward inch by inch?
I think it has been fairly proportionate, and I think the most natural response is it is at the end of the day Russia who is escalating things. It hasn't been the UK just sending in jets straight away. It has been in response to Russia's continued aggression and the recognition that Ukraine needs more support if it's going to win. And there's going to be tanks sent from the UK to Ukraine by the end of March. That's 6 weeks away. This isn't going to be solved within a fortnight. But at the same time, there needs to be some long-term strategy. And how can the Ukraine be helped to succeed in the long term? That might require jets. Obviously, to get to that point, that takes time. Pilots need to be trained not only in how to fly things, but also how to maintain them on the ground, because it can't then be done by the owner of the jet once it's in the Ukraine, because that distinction between direct and indirect support gets blurred even further. So there definitely has to be a long-term plan at play, but it is, at the end of the day, responding to Russia that's escalated the attacks, and it's not just the UK charging ahead willy-nilly.
No. And we know, of course, that the German Chancellor is represented at this particular conference at the moment in Germany, that the Vice President of the United States is there. But I think also we've got President Macron, who has waded in, saying that we have to be very careful how we handle President Putin. Now, it's being said that he's actually giving mixed messages. So presumably what Macron is saying at the moment is not in line with everyone else and not particularly helpful to the cause.
It isn't helpful at all, and you need a unified front. And I think any dithering from European leaders stands in very stark contrast from what Kamala Harris said when she says that Russia, the US has found, is guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. This is a huge allegation from the US. And there is kind of general consensus, at least nominally, amongst some EU states. But if that is the case, there should be, without fail, like a unified response from Europe, from the West. So if you then have President Macron kind of dithering and not really being clear, you're not helping matters at all.
Well, I wonder, Portia, if Macron is still smarting about the fact that Zelensky hoved into view in Paris in that magnificent United Kingdom emblazoned jet when he landed. I digress. I wonder if the clever thing about this is the deployment of jets. I mean, this isn't like giving somebody a car. You can't just drive a jet. You can't just fly it. It's a longer-term strategic manoeuvre. And it's more about, isn't it, the longer-term commitment to defending that frontier with the old hard East. It's not about a quick fix. It's a strategic, longer-term, more sensible view.
For sure. And there's a couple of problems that come with the provision of jets. That it is the escalation of it. But secondarily, you have to make sure that they have pilots trained in how to fly these things. You need to make sure that people can maintain them on the ground. And then across all of this, you also just need to take into consideration that jets aren't always suitable for all terrains, all environments, depending on the airspace that is available and what Russia has in terms of that's their own capabilities. So there's lots at play in this whole situation, but it is important that if people want Ukraine to win, they will probably need jets. And it's not just a matter of holding Russia off, it's about reclaiming the land they've lost. There's no Ukraine won't go down without a fight, and they're not going to settle with just keeping Russia at bay where they are. They want their land back, and that's going to take support from other players.
And quite a lot of time too. Portia, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Yeah. That's Portia Berry-Kilby, who is a representative of Young Voices UK. Yeah.
Yes. And it's great to get a young voice on this role, grizzled old campaigners like myself. Anyhow.